Anchor Pete here, and boy, just 2 weeks away from my good friend over there, Mr. Brian Corsair, is a little too much for me, man. I don't know if I could take it.
Yeah, it was. It was, and we have a lot to cover now too because of it.
Yes.
So on top of it being too much to take, now we have too much to talk about.
Yes. Brian went away on a vacation, and so he was not here last week. And because of that, we are two behind for our two shows that we are covering: Young Justice Phantoms and Moon Knight. So we're going to cover Young Justice first. That's what we do whenever Young Justice is on. And then we are going to talk about Marvel's MCU Disney Plus show, Moon Knight. So, Brian, right off the bat, we're going to jump into Young Justice episode number 17, which is called Leviathan Wakes, right?
Yes, this wrapped up the kind of Aquaman segment of the season.
Yes. My first question for you, sir, is: are you a fan of Kaldor with facial hair?
Sure, why not? I mean, I will say that when that scene first showed up, when they all have more facial hair, really threw me off. I'm like, did I miss an episode?
Yeah.
A couple weeks passed or something like that, and
yeah, it was crazy. That's the idea, is that they were like searching for the crown of Arion, right? To kind of bring this resolution for the whole situation where, all the underwater nations are in unrest and they want to find the one true king. And so they're trying to find his crown. And I found that they kind of had like these little side adventures where they were encountering like these big undersea creatures. And it kind of reminded me of the Phantom Menace. Did you get that vibe too?
Yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah. And it was interesting that they were just dodging death traps and giant creatures for like 3 weeks or something like that,
Yeah. So during that time, Arion started to grow in power too underwater. People wanted him to become the main ruler of the underwater nation, right? Or the, basically Atlantis, right? And it turns out that was actually a plot by the Light. Now, did you totally understand that plot?
Yes. They made a clone of Orm and placed Orm's mind in a clone of Arion in order to take over as the one true king of the ocean.
Right.
Yes.
And so I was kind of thinking, it kind of cracked me up. I want to know what you thought of this too. But that guy Simon, who's, I think he's from the Fearful Five. That's the team that he's on in the comics. And it's Simon PSI and then Mon. He put it like mental blocks in the Orm clone, right? And then Miss Martian was able to break those blocks down. And there's the sequence where she's just essentially seeing all of his memories. And Vandal Savage is literally just standing right in front of his little tube. And he's like, first we're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And he's detailing their plan. It's
it just so happened that he was awake in the little tube for the 30 seconds that he needed to see.
Yes.
Of the whole plot.
Yes. It's like a little exposition dump. We're going to do this, and then we're going to take over Atlantis. And blah, blah. I just I like the show, but I think we've mentioned this a couple of times now at this point, that when they do the exposition dump, sometimes it can be kind of clunky.
Yeah. And I felt maybe the resolution of this arc was a little rushed. Because it's there was so much build up to Arion coming and then being voted in and all this, and then it's over like that.
Yes, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, because when he died, that was really jarring.
Yeah, he died. The energy went back to the lords of was it Chaos or Order? It was Order, right? Order, yeah. And then Orin just puts the crown back on. He's like, yeah, I'm cool now. There's no worries for me here about this. I'm not going to disintegrate.
Yeah, like the whole episode is you're thinking, oh shit, the Light is going to somehow get control of Atlantis or the underwater world, and you're like, oh shit, he's going to put the crown on him. Oh man, Aquaman, Kaldor is bringing the crown to him. It's going to be this crazy kind of sort of Shakespearean moment, and he just puts the crown on his head, just fucking blows up, into a skeleton. You see his brain, I think, too.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some graphic stuff in this show in the last couple seasons, so I mean, it's kind of par for the course at this point. But yeah.
So the Lords of Order, they kind of had a couple of badass moments in this episode. They had that one moment where their power came back to them after he got blown up, and then also Zatanna, who was being the host for Dr. Fate, she goes up to Vandal Savage and kind of like rubs it in his face that he lost this time around.
Yes. And
And
then Vandal Savage does a little fit and breaks his flute.
Yes, breaks Arion, his son's flute, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's going to have some kind of vengeance coming up soon. But overall, were you happy with this Aquaman arc?
Oh yeah, I liked it, but with the exception of the comment I just made about, I felt the ending was kind of rushed. It was like it was built up and then it was just over just like that. You know, they had two paths to finding the truth about Arion, and you know, do we really need both of them? I guess I don't know. But yeah, no, I was really interested in all the politics and all and everything of the ocean and all that. But yeah, just the ending felt weird.
Like, why do you think they had this particular episode? I could kind of understand why they did the Zatanna one, because they're showing like the Lords of Order and Chaos and how they did a big, huge dump on Vandal Savage's story, right? And kind of explain the light and his plans. That works for the Zatanna arc. The Superboy thing is kind of part of this overarching mystery, and we're going to talk about that more in the next episode. But like, was this whole arc really to kind of just really give Kaldor some character beats, and then also to he's already got the answer right there. Okay.
Yeah, no, this season has been about getting back to like the core group.
Yeah.
And everyone's getting an arc, and you know, it was just Kaldor's turn.
Okay.
And I think it's I mean, he didn't have much of a role at all last season, right?
No.
So we really haven't seen much of him since like he was like infiltrating the light and you know on the side of his Black Manta and all that, and so it was good, but yeah, I'm just stuck on that how quickly that all ended.
Well, Orin didn't even become the king at the end, even though
that's right. He gave the crown to Mira. That's right.
That's right. And it's kind of funny because, like, comic books, they almost kind of mirror what's going on in our world too, right? Because like we're starting to see where places where there were patriarchies for so long, now it might be a matriarchy, or you know, you might have men always in power, and then all of a sudden you have women in power. And that's starting to become a big thing, at least in like the adaptations of comic books, right? Because we know, like in Thor, Love and Thunder, which is going to be coming out soon, like Thor has made Valkyrie King Valkyrie, right, of Asgard. Yeah. And then once again in this show in Young Justice, it's not Queen Mara, it's King Mara of Atlantis, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a well-deserved title there. And I think, you know, they've kind of traded that in the comics before. You know, Mira has been in charge before, and she's even stepped in the Justice League for Aquaman as well. So
yeah, with all the nobility characters that are in, and there's many of them are in Marvel, but there are a lot in DC too. It's always like if you have the male figure, then a lot of times the female will kind of take over for them when they're gone. Like Mara with Aquaman, like you just said. And she even became like Aqua Woman at one point. Her costume resembled his. And then, of course, like with like Black Panther, Shuri has been the Black Panther before. Yep. And I'm trying to think who else in Marvel. There's a whole, like the Inhumans with like Medusa taking over for Black Bolt. Yeah. So that's a pretty common thing. I'm totally cool with Mara being the king or whatever. I like Mara a lot. I've always been a fan of her since the comics.
Yeah, I totally agree there. Although I'm iffy on Amber
Heard. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Mara in the live action movie's not so great, but everything else pretty good. Yeah. All right, my man. So I think we covered that first episode. Let's jump over to episode 18, which just came out today. Beyond the Grip of the Gods. So, what do you know of Rocket from before this show? Do you know anything about
her? Very little, other than she was She was Milestone, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much all I know. Yeah. I mean, we've seen her in the show before. I believe this was her first. The show was her first animated appearance, and I almost found this to be an interesting choice for a central character. I mean, it definitely it definitely checks a diversity box, but like I never thought of Rocket as a main team member before.
Yeah, that's a very good point. In the Milestone books, like when it was just Milestone, it was like the separate branch that DC owned, but it was a separate thing. She was pretty like well known, and she was in a lot of different titles, and she helped out this one team called the Blood Syndicate, and she herself was like a sort of like a Robin to their version of Superman. Which, do you know who their Superman guy is?
Icon.
Icon, right. And the thing that's interesting about Icon, just in general, I don't know if you know, but maybe our viewers don't, is that he's an alien just like Superman that came to Earth, but he came to Earth during a time of slavery, and he is able to change his appearance, and he made himself look like an African American man, and he was like a slave when he first started out, right? But
I actually did not know that.
Oh, okay, cool.
I knew he was an alien, but I didn't know the rest of that detail.
Yeah. So he's been around since the days of slavery on Earth, and his name that he adopted was Augustus Freeman the Fourth, and that's essentially because like every time he just takes a new name. He's Augustus Freeman the Second, the Third, the Fourth. But anyway, in the Icon comic, in the very beginning, Rocket, who her name is Raquel Irvin, her and a couple of other guys break into his mansion because he's rich at this point, and they try to rob him, and he convinces her to become his like partner and fight crime and stuff. And her belt, like, do you remember in that episode, Orion asked her, like, what's up with this belt?
Yeah, it's like foreign technology or unknown technology. Yeah, that's from. I mean, I'm stealing your line here because you wrote it, but
yeah.
It's leftover pieces from his Icon ship, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And just some more interesting stuff. I know I'm kind of hogging this, but just some more interesting stuff is that one of the guys that broke into the house with her, his name was Noble. Was that the name of the guy in the beginning of this episode? The dad?
I don't. You know what? I'm not sure. I don't think I caught a name.
Okay. Yeah. But one of the robbers' name is Noble, and he impregnated Rocket like pretty early on in the series, and so she's pregnant for a lot of the comic. And she eventually does give birth to a kid, and the kid's name is Amistad, just like the kid in this episode.
Yes, so, and I was kind of curious about what you thought about the clear autism diagnosis of this character, and how much it impacts Rocket in her daily life, and especially it's like, oh, I had to be a mom, but I also have to go to space for the Justice League.
Right. I like that whole sequence with her son, even though it was probably like the most stressful thing to watch on this show. I think maybe ever, right? I have a lot of experience with autism because in education, I've worked with autistic kids pretty much my whole career. And then, I even have a relative who's autistic as well. And what was very interesting about this opening sequence was that they like checked off every like autism box you could think of, right? Like the kid, he's sensitive to perfumes, and then he just like says the woman smells bad. He's right next to her on the train. That's sort of the idea of like not filtering what you say. The fact that he like turned over his toy cars and he was like playing with the wheels. That's something that you would see with like an autistic child. And of course, there's all different types of diagnoses and all different characteristics that people with autism have. But it's like kind of the most well-known ones they showed in this episode. And that idea of like really struggling with like a change in the routine when the train station had a different stop for them to go to. And then finally also the dad mentioned that they had to go discuss the kid's IEP, and that's
which is something I learned from you.
Yes, yeah. That's something that you have to deal with when you're dealing with special education, and a lot of times students with autism are in special education. So it just kind of reminded me of when they start talking about being a Muslim or picking your pronouns and stuff. Like they take this like real world serious subject matter and they stick it into this superhero cartoon, and I just admire them for their bravery.
So do you feel that they did it justice then? I mean, I know it's a poor word, but
pun intended, right? No. Yes, I do think so, because like I was like, okay, this kid has autism. Like as soon as they you know kind of set everything up, and I think that the key thing there was they were showing how difficult it is as a parent of an autistic child, and so like there's been times when they've showed kids with autism and stuff in movies, and they just totally don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they mess it. Like in that, did you see the Predator, the Shane Black Predator?
Probably, but I don't remember too well.
Like the main guy's kid has autism, and they kind of explain it as like, oh, this is an evolutionary gift that humans have, and the kid could understand like the Predator technology because he was autistic. Like they didn't do any kind of shit like that on here, so that's good.
Okay, that's an interesting take. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, maybe it was a little heavy-handed in the beginning of this, but I just admire that they were trying to be as accurate
Yeah,
as they could.
you know what? I do feel that some of the things they've done, like, and while I do appreciate them, they do all seem a little heavy-handed. Like the Muslim arc with
Halo.
with Halo, it's an interesting look and it's an interesting storyline, but it was a little heavy-handed.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of funny, right? Because Greg Weisman, right? Isn't he connected to the Arrowverse, or is that the Berlanti? Right. And like they wouldn't necessarily tackle any of this kind of stuff in the Arrowverse, which is like primetime television, adult programming, and yet it's on this cartoon. So it's always melodramatic and heavy-handed, but at least they're addressing it. Whereas, like in other kids' cartoons, or this isn't really a kids' cartoon, but like in other cartoons, it's always like we got to get that MacGuffin and stop this guy, and this obviously has more depth to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about the MacGuffins now, though. So anyway, so we go to friggin' New Genesis, the home of the New Gods, and we meet Orion. What'd you think of him?
I thought it was a good depiction of him. My exposure to Orion is limited. I would probably say it's mainly from the Justice League cartoon and from the Brian Azzarello, Cliff Chang Wonder Woman run.
Oh yes, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a cool depiction of him too. What about the Tom King? What the fuck? What the fuck is his name? Mr.
Miracle?
Mr. Miracle, yeah. He's in that.
Was Orion really in that much?
He's in it. He's kind of rough. He's like he kind of takes over on Genesis.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you know what? I guess I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask you though, have they shown Mr. Miracle in this show?
I think they have, yeah. I know they've definitely shown Barda, and I'm pretty sure they've shown him too, but I don't think it was no, he had a speaking role at some point in one season.
Okay.
Yeah, they've both been on the show. I'm very confident about that, but I don't remember when.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like Highfather is still alive and he's around on New Genesis, and then he had a wife in this, and I can't remember her name, but you know they kind of depicted her as like you know she wasn't Caucasian or whatever, right? And so I was just wondering how they would depict Mr. Miracle because that's their kid, right? And I'm always totally cool when they just switch things around, but I'm pretty sure that his mother, Mr. Miracle's mother, got killed off in the comics, and like she's never really been a character.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her at all, man. I obviously know Highfather, but I didn't. She didn't look familiar to me at all.
Right. I thought that I think Darkseid has even killed her in the comics, you know, but that's like in the backstory. It's not like something that happens in the actual comics.
I was wrong. Mr. Miracle has not been in Young Justice, but Barda has.
Okay.
Barda has been shown in 2 episodes, but not Mr. Miracle.
Okay. Well, I totally dug their depiction of Orion. I liked that they played up his claustrophobia and his anger. And I like that he really got upset when Rocket put him in that bubble and his eyes turned red. And it's just like, well, Darkseid is his dad, right? So
yeah.
But even with that sort of that crazy anger, he still was like an honorable warrior. And I just really like that depiction of him. It made me kind of want to read like a ongoing Orion title or see a live action Orion story, you know?
Yeah, I always want more New God stuff. I think I've always been fascinated with that world, and I guess I haven't read as much as I would like, but because there's not that much to, especially recently, not much to read.
Right.
So,
right. I'm trying to think of what the director's name was. Oh, I'm really horrible at names tonight, but she was
Ava DuVernay.
Thank you. See, thank God
Read
you're
your
on
mind.
this channel too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like,
I was so excited for that movie, but I mean, I guess it's been canned now, so
yeah, yeah, and she was writing it with Tom King too, of all people. So I think that would have been awesome too.
Man,
I don't know what the fuck they're doing with DC now, the live action stuff, but that
yeah.
episode,
What are they doing with the guy in your shirt?
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, that's a whole friggin' can of worms right there, right? I think they're going to move forward. Yeah, so if you guys are listening on like the podcast and not watching the YouTube video, I'm wearing a Flash shirt tonight, and there's the controversy right now about Ezra Miller, and they've gotten in a lot of trouble because they like threaten people's lives and tried to rob things.
And this is the second like major thing that he's kind of been involved in the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that they're still going to release the Flash movie, but I think that any kind of project moving forward with them in it, they're going to, nix that.
Sounds like it.
It's just a whole big mess. Anyway, on New Genesis, there's some controversy because you have these like forager alien people, and they steal some tech from the New Gods, and we find out that Megan's brother Macomb is behind it all, right?
Yeah, he's still trying to get on Darkseid's good side. I don't know why he was there doing that, because didn't they show him going off with what they say, Mantis, and then it was some Zod. What was the name?
Right. Okay, so you have General Zod's son. His name's Lor-Zod.
Lor-Zod, that's right, Lor-Zod.
Yeah, which that kind of really threw me off when that happened, because they showed him before this season. In this season, they showed him, and I thought that he was this young monitor that Grant Morrison created for Final Crisis, but it turns out it's General Zod's son.
Huh.
So I think that they're gonna probably do it where like General Zod. I don't know what the fuck to say when I say like he's not African American because he's like from Krypton. But it's like, it's not a white, it's not Caucasian, right?
Yeah.
Like, they often do that with Zod now, where like either him or his kid is black. We'll just say black, right? I mean, whatever. That's not being canceled. Right?
Like Val Zod as well.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, because we actually do see General Zod at the end too, that he's gonna be black too as well.
Yes, especially based on the voice actor who was God, I can't remember his name, but I mean, he's Silas Stone in Doom Patrol. He was Martian Manhunter in Smallville. So he's.
Yeah, that guy's great. Hey, if you guys are listening at home, you should definitely take a shot every time either Brian or I says, I can't remember his name. Because you will be fucking drunk by the time we're done tonight.
Oh, man.
I've read like 4 pages worth of notes, and yet like I don't have some.
I remember his name. Yeah.
And
also, I mean, you gotta. I can never not mention that he was Jackie Childs in Seinfeld.
Oh, that's the same guy.
It's the same guy, Phil Morris.
Phil Morris, he's fucking awesome. He's great on Doom Patrol. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Small world. My wife and I have been watching a lot of Seinfeld too. That's gonna make me appreciate it even more. Anyway, okay, we're all over the place. So before we get to the Superboy stuff, though, let's finish up on New Genesis. So we meet another forger, and it's a girl, and they basically stole this weapon for themselves, and then Rocket.
Was it even a weapon? Because it seemed like it was just like some piece of trash that they were just kind of like containing,
Right.
I mean, it was an interesting. I almost feel like it's like a class like war here, sort of. Like the rich, powerful people have these really these powerful items and MacGuffins and stuff that they don't even need them. It's like garbage that they're just locking away because they don't need it anymore. And this thing that could like save this whole like a forager or bug hive, whatever.
Right.
And the fact that they call them bugs too. I mean, like that sounds almost like a derogatory term there.
Yeah.
So
that's something that's from the
interesting.
comics too. The idea of like all the new gods living up in like what is it called? Hero Town? It's got some kind of ridiculous name.
Yes, yeah, it is kind of ridiculous.
Right. Right. So they all live in Hero Town, and then like below them are all these bug people, and they're like below them. And they're and they always kind of think they're primitive, they're not that smart. But Forager's like this fucking lovable, great character,
Yeah, totally.
And so we meet a girl Forager, and she basically talks like him, and there's this little great interaction between the two of them where they're like, Forager is gonna do this, and she's like, Forager's gonna go down on Forager, or whatever the fuck they say, right? They're gonna get together and have little bug kids, it'll be cute. But then like Jay Garrick's there, and he's like, oh, this is gonna get confusing fast, I fucking love Jay Garrick. Like, if you could rank your Flashes, right? Who would you put as number one?
Oh, that's always tough. I actually would probably pick Wally first.
Yeah.
God, I mean, it's I guess Wally, Barry, Jay.
Okay.
Would be top three, I suppose.
I might do yeah, because for our generation, Wally was like the Flash for the majority of the time, and then Barry came back in like the maybe like early 2000s or mid 2000s. I would actually put Barry, Jay, Wally for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Because once Barry came back and they made him the focus of everything, then I really like latched onto him, and I still read all his books.
Wally has definitely taken a backseat and had some real weird continuity stuff going on.
Yeah. But that reminds me, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place. There was this really great line in the previous episode where Kaldor says something along the lines of, if the League can include 4 Green Lanterns and 2 Flashes, it can embrace 2 Aquamen. So the 2 Flashes are Barry and Jay Garrick, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then the 4 Green Lanterns, I was trying to guess who they were. I know that we've seen Guy Gardner.
Yeah.
So is Hal one of the other ones?
Yeah, it's definitely John Stewart. It's got to be Hal. It's Guy, and then Alan Scott.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so then I guess they haven't talked about Kyle at all.
I don't think we've seen Kyle at all. No.
And then they haven't introduced the other 2 new ones. I always forget their fucking names.
Joe Mullen and Jessica Cruz.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you are on fire tonight, man. People do not have to drink for you. Yes. All right. But okay, so then just with all the new God stuff, there's also Megan's brother. He, besides like sabotaging these poor bug people, he also is up on Apocalypse, and he like pretends to be an insurgent. He comes and he's like, "Oh man, Darkseid fucking sucks," which is like the dumbest fucking thing you could say on Apocalypse, right?
Yeah, that was such a weird plot line. It's like, oh, you've captured 16 insurgents. Like, that's such a weird way to like root out people,
Yes,
like, so like way too much effort involved,
Right. And like it's weird because like everyone looks like a human in this bar, and then like the bartender sounds like he's from Boston, right? He's like, "Hey, you better not say that here," like Darkseid's gonna be after you, and and he thinks he's gonna get in good with Darkseid, and then he goes and he sees General Zod's son. So what do you think is going on there with like? I mean, the whole series is called Phantoms. You got General Zod's son working with Darkseid. Like, what do you think is going to happen there?
The only possible conclusion I can think of is that they're going to try and get Drew Zod out of the Phantom Zone.
Okay.
I don't know exactly why or why Darkseid would want to do that. Maybe he just wants another ally or something. I'm not really sure. That doesn't even really make sense to me. But I mean, it's a little too much of a coincidence to have Lord Zod and then have Drew Zod in the same episode.
When you think, and this is in our script at all, when you think of like sort of like the main pillars, the main story beats of Young Justice, right? Like kind of the stuff that they always kind of go back to, the well that they draw from, right? Wouldn't you say that like Superboy and his relationship with Superman and the fact that he's a Lex Luthor and Superman clone, that's probably like a big part of this show.
Huge pillar of the show. Yeah.
Right. And like with this episode, he starts to have these visions where it's like Lex Luthor's plan for him happens, and he like essentially breaks Batman's back, right?
Wait, was Batman?
Yeah. So do you remember he has these visions at the end of this episode, and it's like he's like breaking Batman's back like he's Bane, right?
How did I miss that?
It's real quick. He's like breaking Batman's back, and Lex Luthor says something like, "You took care of that vigilante in Gotham."
Good.
Right? It's funny because it looks like Bane. He's like this, right?
Yeah.
And then it looks like he's shooting rays like through like a dome in Atlantis, like so he's taking out Atlanteans, and then he kills off somebody else at the very end too. God damn it. It might be Wonder Woman. I don't know. But like essentially he like takes out the Justice League, and I guess that was Lex Luthor's plan, right?
Yeah. So I was a little confused, or maybe I was just multitasking at the time. But
yeah,
what was that whole speech from Zod at the end to him? He was explaining that what was happening to him because he's been in the Phantom Zone for so long.
Yeah. So Superboy has this vision, right? And at the very end of the vision, Lex Luthor, who's part of the vision, says, okay, well, you need to just detach this one thing that's holding you back. And he's holding Phantom Lass, but he's envisioning it like it's Megan, right? Yes. And then he's like, you have to get rid of her. And then he doesn't, though. He's about to get rid of her, but then Drew Zod shows up, and he's like, you're in the Phantom Zone, and this is a weird-ass place, and you can see me. You know it's me because you've never seen me before, so I'm real. And they said that if you're looking at someone over there and you recognize them, then that's a vision. And then, like, once he says that, Lex Luthor disappears.
Yeah.
But he's saying, go ahead.
Wasn't he explaining like something he's been in the Phantom Zone too long and he's got like phantom sickness or something like that?
Right. That's how they do it, because he says something and then at the very bottom, they always tell us like the location and then the date and stuff. And then that's the first time for this area. They're like, the Phantom Zone, Yeah. I thought that was really cool. That's a good touch. But yeah, basically he's been there so long, it's fucking with his mind and he's having these visions. But it's just really interesting that his visions are like these violent, almost like Injustice type visions, right?
Yeah. And now he's coming to meet, Zod, who is not the nicest guy, but he kind of seems like it at first here.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see the effect he'll have on Superboy.
Yeah. Do you think that the show is at all being influenced by Invincible, like the Invincible cartoon?
It's hard to say because Invincible is so tied to Superman itself,
right? Right.
So maybe.
Yeah, because just like the way that Superboy like violently dispatched with members of the Justice League, it just kind of really reminded me of Omni-Man from Invincible. Like the comics and the Amazon show too,
Yeah.
So, but I do think that like because it's called Phantoms, it's just like what you said, where like the main arc is they're gonna like try to bring Kryptonians from the Phantom Zone to the real world.
Yeah, that's got to be what Darkseid's plan is, and I imagine we'll see all this come together in I guess a Nightwing arc. I mean, I feel like we're kind of due for one here,
Yeah. Maybe if they do a Nightwing arc, which I think you're right, we are due, maybe they'll kind of allude to like where he gets his namesake. His namesake is Kryptonian, and maybe he'll have like an experience where he kind of runs into like they did this whole thing, and I know you know this, but just for our viewers, they did this whole thing where they brought back a bunch of Kryptonians from the bottle city of Kandor, and they were just like all powerful like Superman, just flying around Earth. And two of the Kryptonians took up the name of Nightwing and Flamebird, because that's like where the mythology of Nightwing took his name from that myth, that Kryptonian myth. And so like maybe the way the show is with lore and stuff, I would not be surprised if like characters with those names showed up,
Yeah, but I mean, I'm excited to see more New God stuff and just see where all this goes.
Yeah, Yeah, fucking, I love Darkseid. Give us more Orion if you can, and give us more Rocket and her little autistic son. I'm down for all
Yeah,
that.
let's do it.
Cool, man. Well, we've already jabbered a lot. Are you ready to go into Moon Knight?
Yes.
We're on a fucking marathon right here. So, episode 2, Summon the Suit. You said, we're going to start off right with you, man. You said, is this like a knockoff Venom?
Well, yeah, I said that when we were the first episode. I felt that Khonshu kind of sounded like a riff on how they did Venom in the Tom Hardy movie, which I didn't really like.
No,
and I was a little iffy on him at first, but I mean, I think the character has actually grown on me, and the interactions between, especially between Mark and Khonshu, have grown on me in the episodes 2 and 3.
Yeah. I totally see what you're saying, where it's like, he's having these conversations in his head, and it's very much like the Tom Hardy Venom thing. I'm glad that you're kind of critical of this show, because there are things of it that I think are kind of weak. There are aspects of it that I think are weak. But there's some things I like too. I would not say that this is my favorite MCU show. What about you?
Yeah, which I do see a lot of people saying. No, not yet. I mean, I don't want to say either yes or no, basically, because we haven't seen the whole show yet.
Right.
From what I understand, some shit gets real crazy by the end. So I'm very curious.
Yeah, and it's kind of fucking crazy how deep we've already gone just by episode 3, right?
Yeah, they've explained. They've given quite a bit of exposition in these couple episodes here, and I think the most amazing thing is how unrelated it is to everything else.
Yeah,
like that's the most important distinction of the show to me so far, is that it's not touched anything else yet.
That's right. Well, you mentioned exposition. How'd you feel about that scene where, like, Ethan Hawke, Harrow is basically explaining like his group of people and their devotion to Ammit? Like, how'd you feel about that scene in episode 2?
Is that what when they're at the dig site, or no? I'm getting, because I watched episode 2 like as soon as I got back from vacation, so it's a little more blurry for me where it was.
Yeah. So basically, in episode 2, at one point, Stephen Grant gets arrested by these 2 detectives, but they're actually working for Harrow,
Yes.
right? And so he takes them to like his like mission that he has with all these like followers.
Oh, so this is when they're like talking together. He's talking to Stephen.
Yeah.
Oh, and like that temple or wherever the heck it was. Yeah.
Right.
God, I guess I don't remember too much of the actual conversation then. I mean, all I really understand about it is that ultimately they want to free Ammit, who just wants to make the world a better. They want to make the world a better place by removing, kind of like Minority Reporting, everybody.
Yes.
They just want to erase everyone that's going to eventually do something bad in their lives before they can do it.
Yes.
Which sounds very cultish and crazy.
Right.
To me.
Right.
And then oh, actually, there was a part that I really did like. What Steven says, like, what about murdering a child? And it's like, I'm like, wow, that's like the most obvious logical thing that I would say, and then they actually said it in the show. I feel like they don't always say those really obvious things, because it doesn't, the universal answer is no, you don't murder a child, but
Yeah. I like their motivation. I especially like the idea of like Minority Report, where it's like you're getting someone before they commit the evil, right? It's like they have the potential and you kill them before that. That's an interesting thing to play with. However, one of the main criticisms of the MCU is that, like, it seems like it's like a factory, or like it's like mass produced. It's on a conveyor belt. And I feel like we've seen this scene so many times before, where the villain comes in and they're like, we're actually trying to do good, and this is how we're good, and we're just misunderstood because we're trying to be good. And I kind of want those fucking scenes anymore.
Well, you see, I think I remember reading an article about this, how writers, maybe this was someone's opinion and maybe this isn't actually a fact, but how the writers on these shows, when they're creating the villains, they have to put in some kind of like little bit of crazy in there to make the ideas sound bad, universally bad, like the child killing thing I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And just in case the general public opinion changes and then the character doesn't look good at all. You know, like you know, at some points you can kind of see some of these groups, like there's some, you know, like there's some merit to some of the things, aspect of what they're saying in some level, sort of.
Yeah.
But they throw in something like, you know, with Falcon and Winter Soldier, they had
Flag Smashers.
yeah. The flashbacks, they had them blow up this factory with all these innocent people in there. Like that was that moment where it's like, okay, they did something bad there. So even if public opinion changes and they think these people are right, they still did this really bad thing that they kind of can't erase because they murdered people.
Right.
So I think that's kind of why we see these kind of villains like this. And honestly, I do kind of like villains better when they have conviction and they have something that they believe in that's actually sort of believable, I guess.
Yeah.
Like you could kind of see it from their perspective in some way, that how they what they think is right. Not that you necessarily agree with it, but I just think a villain with conviction is a much better villain than one that's just like, hey, I'm crazy, I'm gonna go kill people because I'm crazy.
Right. Look, I completely agree with you there. Like, I think that probably my favorite MCU villain is Killmonger, and I think that like he's one of those villains where you could just completely get behind him because everything he says makes sense, right? I mean, even Thanos kind of makes sense to a certain point, right? And everyone can poke logic in everyone's theories, but that is really interesting.
I have to just. I remember reading something fairly recently, which I'm like, why in the hell didn't anyone think of this? Thanos' whole plot is to half all of life in the universe to basically allow everyone to have enough resources. Why not just make the snap double all the resources?
Oh, I know. Yes, I know. Yeah, Thanos has the most hokey one too, and also with like the half in the life, right? Doesn't he have like animals and shit too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So like, isn't that halving like the food and shit you can consume too?
Yeah, and probably trees and plants too, which is taken away from.
Oh my god, fucking Thanos, you idiot! But I don't know. I just like I don't. You know me. I don't like exposition in general. What I like about Ethan Hawke's character so far, Harrow, is just the fact that you can hear the fucking glass in his shoes when he's walking. I like that. Yeah. And to me, it's like, okay, well, he obviously is doing that because he's serving this God that judges people. And there must be something that he's like causing himself pain for. That's almost like when someone goes to take like a lie detector test and they have to like focus on something so that it comes out as truth. I think that's why he has the glass in his feet.
Oh, I really like that take. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, and we'll obviously see about that too. And if you want to hear I got a juicy take for you too. If you want to just drop it in here right now too.
Yeah, do it.
All right. It has nothing to do with Ethan Hawke, but I was thinking one of the things that you and I talked about on Twitter was that the Thor trailer is delayed because maybe Gore shows up in this show and they don't want to like reveal it yet, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's my hot take. This is such a fucking stupid take. What if Amit is Gore?
Ooh.
The only reason why I would say something as fucking stupid as that is because Christian Bale's Gore from the toy that we saw of him looks like a fucking mummy. And all this Egyptian shit, all the gods, they're making them look like mummies. Moon Knight looks like a mummy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's probably just because they want to, like, make sure we know it's Christian Bale and you don't want him to look like a crazy alien man. But, like, what if they release Amit and it's Gore, really? You know?
Well, that would be interesting. I mean, obviously, Gore can't actually be Amit because Amit was a female deity.
Female. Right, I thought about that too.
So, I mean, I could imagine that maybe it's just, but at the same time, doesn't that kind of, does that diminish Gore's story? Because Gore's whole thing was that, the gods had failed him. And that's why he wanted to just kill them all. Like he felt they were worthless. They weren't doing anything. And he just wanted to get rid of all of them. So he started doing it.
Yeah.
I can see your angle with the with the leaked images of Christian Bale and his costume there, which I'm honestly a little disappointed at.
Yeah,
I know I know in the comic he didn't really have much of a costume, and he was just kind of like this like weird, lanky gray alien looking thing with some kind of weird cloak around him.
Right,
but,
right.
He looks almost like he's like a priest now or something like that. It's a little strange. I guess that could further his storyline if he was a priest and the gods didn't answer him and he's pissed off.
Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, I'm not 100% sure we're going to see Christian Bale in this, but I'm very confident that there is going to be some kind of tie to Thor in this. And I feel like I feel like how they're going to do it is that they're going to like the end credit scene is going to be those avatars that we saw from the other gods. And they're just going to like lose their power or drop dead or something like that because Gore killed them.
I agree completely. And I think that, we're kind of jumping around with Moon Knight. We're not necessarily going in chronological order. I think that's fine. I think that the fact that they encase Khonshu in stone, I think that might be the thing that keeps him from getting killed off where the other gods might get killed off.
Yeah, well, maybe. But I'm curious to see if Khonshu being in stone still allows the summoning of the suit and the power that it grants there or not. Because if he can't call the suit, then obviously he has to get it back before the end of the show. But so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, but yeah. It'd be interesting though because I think if memory serves me right, the newest version of Moon Knight, the newest comic, it's written by Jed McKay, and it's really good. I've read like the first 6 issues, but in that comic, Khonshu is gone because he's gotten in trouble for trying to take over the world. And so Mark doesn't really have any kind of powers or any kind of connection to him. Okay. And that might be something that they try to go with the show, where maybe Khonshu's MIA because he's in stone, and that way he can't get killed when the other gods get killed. And that maybe he's more like a traditional Moon Knight for the rest of the show. It's probably not going to be that because they probably want to just keep that same design for the costume and stuff. But that would be a good way to like make him be more street level,
Yeah, I can totally see that. The other question I have too is, I think that Khonshu is going to have to come out before the end of the show because I think they keep alluding to that night. Like he said, I remember that, and I remember every night. And I think I want to know more about, the history with Khonshu, and I'm assuming there's some kind of relation to Amit in the past. I want to know more about that. I don't see how we get that without Khonshu.
Yeah. Well, since we're kind of jumping around too, there was one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about while we were talking about Thor: Love and Thunder and the gods and stuff. You had put out this question of what's the relationship between the gods? Like, what are they all like, essentially? And, you mentioned the Eternals, too. I think and I want to hear your take on this, too, but I'll just throw my 10 cents in. That, I think that for the most part in the MCU, you have these, powerful beings that are essentially pretty much aliens. And we make them into gods with our imaginations, into our mythologies,
Yeah.
So I think that the Egyptian gods are, once again, just like alien beings. What do you think?
Well, I guess my question was more about with Eternals, that they made it seem like they were the inspiration for many of the gods. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, are these are the Egyptian gods Eternals? Are they something else? Like, how are we explaining all the different pantheons in the Marvel universe? We have the Asgardians. That's pretty clearly set. But, there's the the Greek and Roman gods, there's the Egyptian gods as well. Are they all just different groups of aliens, I guess? I mean,
that's a very, very good question.
I guess they could be, and it just as the existence of the Eternals, and does it contradict any of this at all?
Yeah, and what's interesting too is there's different power sets, right? And it's are some groups more powerful than others, right? Because Khonshu does something so fucking ridiculous in this last episode. Where he spins the fucking sky, and it's not just And it's not like it's just in Mark Spector's mind, because there's people like on the street looking up at the sky and they're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. So like, what is he actually doing there? And yeah, I don't even know what the fuck's going on there. You know, it's
He's
crazy.
pulling a Superman saving Lois Lane.
That's right. They said that on Mr. Sunday when they did a review of it. Yeah. I'm going to take it as like he affected the sky over Egypt, since they were in Egypt, and he didn't just spin the whole fucking sky of the earth.
Yeah, well, I mean, is that possible?
Like, no, it's so ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So
I feel like if you did that and you actually spin the earth around, like, you would just cause mass destruction of
right.
All these massive disasters.
Yeah, it was like so ludicrous, that whole sequence. But okay. So what I was gonna say to kind of go along with your point was, I can't remember if it's like Earth X or one of those books, but it's like a book where it's like in the distant future for Marvel. There's a book where like essentially they like tied everything together, right? And they made it like the Asgardians and all these other races all come from like one group, and I think they probably did tie it to the Eternals too. I think that's probably what they're gonna end up doing with all these different races. I don't know why they're gonna make it like they're from distinct areas, but what's interesting to me is that, like, would you say that the Eternals and the Asgardians are like on the same level of power?
That's a great question. I don't know, because I feel like we've had so much more characterization for the Asgardians than the Eternals, especially in the MCU, and I mean even in comics. I would say more recent comics. It's hard to say. Like I think I want the Asgardians to be stronger because I think I know more about them.
Right.
You know, and it just seems. I mean, on some level, as much as I did like and enjoy the Eternals movie, on some level, it is they are kind of lame. Like they're like they're all kind of knockoffs of other existing superheroes, but they're meant to be these like progenitors in some way, you know. And it's just kind of like it's a weird kind of thing. Like this is these great, huge, like amazing, powerful things, and they're really just knockoffs of things that have existed. They're supposed to be beneath them, you know?
Right.
Like one runs fast, one flies and shoots lasers out of his eyes. You know, it's like, you know, what are we doing here?
We know that team, right?
Yeah.
One makes constructs. They are kind of like the Justice League in that movie, in the MCU movie. Yeah. But like one of the things that always kind of tripped me out was, you know, Thor's on that spaceship at the end of Ragnarok, and Thanos like beats him to a pulp, and then they blow up that spaceship, and he's just floating in space. Then in Infinity War, he's in space, just floating, and like a sun's rays kind of go through him and burn him, and he's still alive. So he's like so powerful that he can do that kind of shit. And Thor in the comics is extremely, extremely powerful too. But I was just kind of trying to pair him up with like Icarus or some of the other Eternals, and I just wonder. Like it always blew my mind that like Thor could just be in space and just flying around in the MCU. You know, it's like a next level kind of being. And so it's also interesting too, because with the Egyptian gods, it's not like they're in physical form on Earth. They're like using humans as avatars. So it's like, why are they doing that? And the other gods are like just there, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it paints quite a interesting disjointed picture.
Yeah. I do feel like they know what they're doing, and I think that, you know, Thor Love and Thunder is going to like explain things a lot. Well, but you know, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the hallmarks of the MCU is kind of streamlining all these different story arcs that have come in the past, and then putting their own little twist to kind of make them all fit together in some way.
Yeah,
and I think we're also seeing that with Moon Knight himself. You know, one of the other points I wanted to bring up today was their depiction of Mr. Knight, which is totally different to me from the comics. It's very, very different. And while on some level I like that the idea that, oh, so Moon Knight is the Mark Spector version of the suit, and Mr. Knight is the Stephen Grant version of the suit. Like, that's a really interesting concept, but it's I don't like Mr. Knight in the show.
Yeah, especially he had some kind of cheesy line. He's like, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and he's like, I'm Stevie with a V. He said something real fucking cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said like chill the F out or something too. It was like I don't know. I honestly I don't like Stephen Grant in this show at all. I am so impressed with Oscar Isaac and his switching back and forth between these two characters and just to show how different they are, how different
Yeah.
of personalities they are. Especially there was the one scene in episode 3 where when Mark is holding like the mirror from the car and he just like it was just like that,
Right.
and like that was really impressive to me.
Yeah.
But I don't like Stephen very much. I find him very annoying.
No, I understand. He is pretty fucking annoying. I think probably the best scene where I thought there was like the best acting was when he was arguing with him in the second episode, and he's like looking at a mirror, and he's right where he killed that jackal on top of the spire, and he gets real mad and just starts kicking the mirror. I thought that was maybe the best part of the show so far. Like just those.
Yeah, that was good. And I think there are moments where Stephen shines and it is an asset to the show, but I think his kind of like aversion to any kind of conflict and everything, like he's a little too I mean, I guess he's like just a regular guy, but they're playing up a little bit too much, I think.
Yeah. It's definitely like an artificial seeming thing. It's like a plot thing because Mark will be fighting as Moon Knight, and then he'll like look, and then Steven will be like, "Stop, Mark!" And it's like, what? Well, he's not killing anybody; he's just punching someone, And it's like, why are you telling him to stop? It's just I don't know. Feels artificial. Let's get in a couple more of your beautiful points that you have over here. So you mentioned a third personality, right?
Oh yeah. So I mean, in the scene where Mark is chasing some criminals through Egypt and all that, and he has they show that flash again where it's like they don't know what happened, like the time got away from them. I mean that's got to be Jake Lockley at this point. Like he was kind of the more rage filled, like kind of thuggish character who was also a cab driver or something.
Yes.
So yeah, that's got to be him manifesting. And I'm also wondering too. The first 2 episodes, Steven was mostly in the driver's seat. Episode 3 is mostly Mark, and I imagine we'll see more of Mark in the next episode. But I'm kind of wondering if they're giving each personality like two episodes, sort of. And so yeah.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something there. I saw a great because I actually watched a couple of videos about Moon Knight since I watched this episode, and there was this great fucking panel that I saw of a comic that had like all the different personalities and Moon Knight together. Like I want to find that picture because it did have like Stephen Grant, but the way he is in the comics, and Mark Spector the way he is in the comics. Yeah. I actually would love to see a new personality kind of come in and then see how Mark reacts to him and how Stephen reacts to him. I'm all down for that.
And I'm curious if they'll give him, a third suit.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll have like a suit that's like Mr. Knight, but he'll be kind of like badass. Because on some of the promotional material, they have pictures of him as Mr. Knight, but he doesn't look like goofy and stuff. He looks like real, like almost like a serial killer.
Yeah, that could work actually, I suppose. But I'd almost be curious. I mean, if they're going with that angle that it manifests differently depending on the user, I would almost want to see something more original.
Yeah, like a third one altogether. Yeah, good point. I think it's worth noting, and you mentioned this in your notes too, that we saw Anton Mogart, who he was played by Gaspard Ulliel, who a lot of people just are going around knowing that this guy, the actor, died, right?
Yeah.
So, and he was a young guy, I don't know how he died, but he died.
It was a skiing accident, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sucks. Okay, well, yeah, he died before the show even came out, so that sucks. But he was playing a guy who was essentially like an artifacts collector on the show. But in the Moon Knight comic, he played a character named Midnight Man, and I bet you they probably had plans for him, right, in the future.
Yeah, he did get away. So
he did get away. Yeah. So we'll see. Did you have any other things that you want to say about Moon Knight?
Yeah, I want to talk about Layla.
Yes, Layla.
So episode 3 opens up with Layla getting like a fake passport, fake ID. It has the name Layla. What the hell is her last name?
Alu
Drink. No. On the passport, like her name in the show is Layla Al something.
Yeah.
Something like that, some Egyptian sounding name.
Right.
But based on there was a scene at Anton's like compound or whatever, where I think it was Harrow mentions, Mark isn't telling you something about what happened with your dad, and that's a big part of Moon Knight's origin in the comics. Is Marlene's father, Dr. how do you say it? Alruin?
Alruin? I don't know.
Alron?
Elron, yeah.
Yeah.
Al Roker?
He is an archaeologist and he was I guess they hired Mark and this other guy, Bushman, as mercenaries and all that, and then Bushman gets greedy, kills him, and then because he wants the what they found for himself, and then that's how Mark gets in contact with Khonshu. He kind of like left dying there, and this cult of Khonshu finds him, and they bring him back to life.
Right.
So I imagine he had dealings with her father, and he died, and I guess she doesn't know that. So I'm assuming that maybe Layla is either a stand-in for that character, or is that Layla's a fake name and her actual name is Marlene. And I'd be curious to see that.
Yeah. I think you're 100% on the money. And I actually didn't know all the details of that origin that you just said. I didn't know that Bushman was part of that origin. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, basically Mark didn't like that Bushman killed the Dr. Alran. Oh fuck, I can't say that name.
It's all good.
And then he attacked him, but he lost the fight. So and then he was bleeding out.
Okay, I see. Okay, and that's when Khonshu rescued him. Yeah. I think you're right. It could be that she's using a fake name. Layla's the fake name, or it could just be that they kind of combine characters. They've already kind of done some things like that with this show. I was going to say there's something else about Layla and the show. I think the Khonshu has his eyes on her, and I was wondering if you thought that maybe that might be like we were talking before about like females kind of taking over the male character roles. Do you think that's a way to open end and make her be the next Moon Knight?
Well, it seems like it's something that Mark doesn't want to happen because he says he keeps mentioning a deal that he made and he has to fulfill it before he can be like freed or something like that. So I think it's possible, but the fact that Mark doesn't want it to happen makes me think it's not going to happen. But I think that would be a great way if Oscar Isaac just wanted to just do a quick show and just dip out. That's a great way to continue it. Have the character continue in the MCU.
Yeah, right. Good point. Because Oscar Isaac, a lot of people know, he only has a contract for this show. So unlike other MCU actors who have multiple projects, this is it for him.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, do you have any other Moon Knight thoughts?
No. That's it.
Okay. I actually had like one that was popping out when you were saying the stuff about Layla, but I totally can't fucking remember now, so it's all good.
Sorry.
No, it's good, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks, and we had a lot of catching up to do. So we have for next week, it's just Young Justice and Moon Knight again, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. But we got a lot of shit on the horizon. Eventually, we're going to talk about The Boys when that comes back, and
Obi-Wan, The Boys. There was something else we were going to do too. Can't remember what it is.
Yeah, but we're not doing fucking Morbius though, okay?
Yeah, you know what? I can't even see how I'm gonna go see it at this point. So yeah, let's just scrap that.
Fuck Morbius. There you go. Okay, cool. So anyway, until next time, guys, make sure you're watching Young Justice and Moon Knight. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do, because we always love to hear what you guys think in the comments. But we will see you guys next Thursday to talk about our 2 favorite current shows.